Deep, very serious.
Hello, everyone. This is Mentor Lawyer, and I'm going to be sharing my thoughts with you about a lot of issues all surrounding the trial in the state of Florida versus Donna Adelson case, which, of course, regards the 2014 murder of FSC law professor Dan Markel. A murder that everybody knows was done because of a divorce and post divorce battle between Wendy Adelson, or Team Wendy, and Dan Markel, or Team Danny. Everybody knows that the murder happened because Wendy Adelson wasn't allowed to move to South Florida to be with her family, to enjoy life down there where she really wanted to be, to see life the way that she wanted it to be seen, right? The way that she wanted to live it, close to her family, close to cool friends, close to a lot of boating parties, whatever. She wanted to live that life. And she was not allowed by a judge. And that hurt the Adelsons. It was a war between the Adelsons and Dan Markel, a war that they kept losing in court, at least on the matter that mattered the most, the issue of moving to South Florida. Everybody knows this. All the convictions so far have been on that theme. That was the main motive for the murder, to allow Wendy and the kids to relocate to South Florida, to remove their father from the picture so that he wouldn't interfere with the way that the Adelsons wanted to raise those two little boys, so that he wouldn't impose his will, his control over the kids. Control or not, that whether he had the right to control the kids or not, whether he was overbearing, whether he was over controlling, those are issues that happen in families, in breakups, in divorces. Divorces are ugly. The reason that you divorce somebody is often selfish. We allow that in this country. It's normal. People do divorce to pursue happiness. And in the wake of that pursuit of happiness, there are kids involved often. And usually the kids suffer the consequences. And yes, and because of that, because divorce is, in spite of the fact that in the United States it is accepted that people will move on, that people don't have to stay in a sad or unhappy or unsatisfactory relationship, they can move on. It is pretty obvious that divorce is deeply hurtful very often to the people involved. Not just divorce, but any breakup. We see murders happen all the time because of people that can't control their emotions during breakups, just from boyfriend girlfriends, just from any kind of relationship. I mean, this is a constant theme on murders that we cover in this channel, right? People just cannot break up normally and let the other person be. It's either you're going to be with me or you're not going to be with me. So on the one hand, you have divorces that are encouraged by jealousy and so on and so forth. This is not that, right? This is not a situation where the murder of Dan Markel was because somebody couldn't stand the fact that he left the family. It was the opposite. He was left behind by Wendy, right? The motive in this case has always been established very clearly to be about that war in court, the litigation that was lost on the main issue that all the Adelsons wanted to win: relocation, getting Wendy the hell out of Tallahassee, of hellhole Tallahassee. And I don't blame her. I mean, Miami is amazing. It's beautiful. The lifestyle there is great. And as we heard, there's a much bigger Jewish community. There's a lot more things for the kids to do, and et cetera, et cetera. So maybe in the long run, it would have been great for the kids to be able to live in South Florida. Totally get that. And I never disputed the fact that Wendy and her family had the right to ask for Wendy to move to South Florida and had the right to encourage Dan Markel to allow that to happen eventually. Maybe not right away. Maybe they should have an agreement that let's stay a couple of years here, and in the meantime, let's compromise. I'm going to go look for a job in South Florida or whatever that is more satisfactory to everybody involved. Hopefully, something like this would have happened if everybody had been reasonable. But we all know that this was never a reasonable divorce. From day one, it was not reasonable. From the way that it was filed, from the way that he was notified of the murder, this was a nasty divorce. So let's talk about the defense theme, right? What is the theme of the defense here? They presented the testimony of this lady, the lady that has an office behind this wall. Right here, behind this wall, is Linda Bailey's office. It actually, I'm outside right now. My Benz is parked in the front of this building. And then to the right of this duplex of offices is the office of Linda Bailey. I see her every day, probably for the past, since 2007, I've seen her every day in the parking lot. I mean, almost every day that I come to work, I see Linda Bailey. We're friendly and communicated maybe a couple of times. She did handle a divorce case for somebody I know, and she came to talk to me one time about that, but that's it. We're not friends, okay? But what is this theme from the defense, right? This theme today that they presented all this testimony to the jury about the fact that this was just a normal, non-litigious, non-contentious divorce. Is that a joke? So was Dan Markel murdered for nothing? Are they trying to say, wait a second, in the opening statement, they said, the state can prove all of this to you. They can prove that my children murdered Dan Markel, at least Charles. And they also, of course, insinuated through the cross of Wendy Adelson that she also was involved. That was the opening theme, right? They can prove to you all of this. But there's not going to be one piece of evidence that will show that Donna planned it, agreed with it, wanted Dan Markel dead. Right? There is pieces of evidence against everybody else, but not against Donna. That's the theme of the opening statement. Of course, we heard evidence that puts her right in the middle. Weak or not weak, there was evidence. I mean, you have the informants, and the informants did say that she confessed. So, believable or not, there is evidence. So then the argument is going to be tomorrow by the defense. There's no objective evidence. There's nothing other than people who have a huge interest in lying telling you these lies. That's what they're going to say. There's nothing in paper that you can say this absolutely shows that Donna Adelson wanted this murder to happen. But what they did today, through the very poor testimony of two, I would say somewhat bitter divorce lawyers, maybe jaded divorce lawyers would be the term. Especially, I think it is pretty clear that while she's testifying, Miss Adamson, right? While she's testifying that this is a non-contentious divorce, it is pretty clear that she's very contentious about Dan Markel, the victim. So this was like a trial on Dan Markel. Let's bash Dan Markel as much as possible. Everything resolved reasonably, but everything that was done unreasonable in the divorce was written by Dan Markel. And I get it. Maybe there was unreasonable stuff in there. I understand that. But then what is the theme? Is it reasonable or unreasonable? Is it contentious or is it not contentious? Right? So the whole point of this 2 hours, 3 hours of testimony is to show that this was not a contentious divorce. Well, they didn't accomplish that. I think it was quite the opposite. I think it was pretty clear that Christine Adamson was bothered as heck about Dan Markel herself. She was so bothered that she had freaking quit the case, right? Supposedly forced. And darn, I wish I got an answer about this question, something that I've been asking for years. Why the heck did she withdraw? If Dan Markel's motions are nothing, total bullshit, BS, okay? Is it so easy for Dan Markel to get rid of Wendy Adelson's lawyer? Just file some document that falsely states something that is easily provable as false, according to Christine Adamson. All of this shit is false, stupid shit that he wrote as a scholar that wasn't freaking thinking straight. She cannot fathom that a Florida lawyer would actually sign the paper that he wrote, that Dan Markel wrote, and file it in court. That's how frivolous it was. Nobody's scared of this. Yet she withdraws? Why? Oh, because she has to testify? Seriously? Is that all you have to do now to remove a lawyer from the other side? Just, file false documents saying that they lied and now they have to withdraw because of conflict of interest? Bullshit. Bullshit. Okay? So this is all bullshit, classless testimony, in my opinion. It was a bit disgusting at the Charles Adelson trial to me to watch Christine Adamson's testimony, but I think Dan Rashbaum handled it much shorter, much lighter, I guess. Although you could see that there was some nasty feelings from Christine Adamson towards Dan Markel. But today, I mean, they just like really went deep dive to try to prove the unprovable, that this was like a non-contentious divorce. Obviously, these people were upset as hell. It's obvious. Just read the freaking emails that are part of this evidence in the case. What are you trying to argue by putting two lawyers to say this was non-contentious? It's just absurd. So what is the theme of this defense, right? Because honestly, if we have reasonable jurors that are watching this, and we're not going to have any rogue jurors in this trial, that looked disgusting to me, and it didn't accomplish anything, and it really made Georgia Kappelman a superstar. The cross-examination by Sarah Dugan of Christine Adamson was mild. The cross-examination by Georgia Kappelman of Linda Bailey was an obliteration. That's a total obliteration. Total obliteration. And because in the cross-examination, actually, Christine Adamson was a lot more reasonable. She admitted to the fact that she actually had cases that involved murder and suicides. This Linda Bailey is like, no, I mean, there was one time some, Arab guy, whatever, that suicide just because a divorce was filed. But, that culture is different. I mean, just horrible. Just horrible. You're talking about Wendy Adelson not being able to read the room. I think that neither of these witnesses read the room, read the jury, or understand this case, or understand how foolish they look on the witness stand, bashing a dead man who was clearly murdered because of a divorce, because of litigation involving the children, custody, and whatever else he did in court, right? Because maybe he was a little bit unwise in his legal filings. Although he sounded totally reasonable on his voicemail to Wendy, and when he talked to other people, he was a reasonable guy. But from day one, he was dealing with a-holes on the other side that filed for the papers and arranged this move as if he was a total abuser, right? Making him look like some nutso that has to be left while he's out of town. Complete surprise. Pearl Harbor, he called it. And for a family man, for a man who loves his children, maybe that's what it was. It wasn't Pearl Harbor in the real sense, but for this man's heart, it was Pearl Harbor. Okay? He's freaking in New York about to give a presentation, and he gets a phone call that they know that he's about to give a presentation, and he gets this phone call to say, mic drop, hey, divorce papers are at home. I'm getting the fuck out. And so are the kids. And so is half our money. Sayonara. And by the way, I'm also taking your tennis racket. So no tennis this week, buddy. Come on. This was a disgusting divorce from Wendy at first. An unwise divorce from Dan's side. No doubt. I agree 100% that he was unwise. But they were diabolical. I agree with that word, South City Sunshine. Diabolical in how they handled the divorce, how they played it, how they were playing the feelings of Dan Markel. So, I don't get the theme from the defense, but I do get it because it is all tied to Tim Jensen, isn't it? Come on, people. A few criticized me because I said something about Tim Jensen. But honestly, guys, come on. This is a local attorney who's getting his face in front of the cameras all the time. WTXL puts him in front of the cameras. You know that we have STS that came in and stormed into this case right after the Charles Adelson trial, somehow got an interview with Georgia Kappelman and basically stole all of our views. Everybody goes to STS. No problem. Yeah, am I bitter? Of course I'm bitter, especially because STS was using, taking other people's stream. Even one time they did mine without permission, and then they have somebody commenting, so they get all the views. Yeah, of course, bias admitted. I don't like STS, okay? I admit that. But come on. What they did to put this jerk, because I like Tim Jensen, he's a nice guy, whatever, but I mean, come on. That move was freaking disgusting. On the eve of this trial, this has to have been planned, people. Okay, they got a tip that Donna Adelson was offered to say everything about Wendy Adelson, and she would walk free, and she rejected it. Why is it horrible and gross? Thanks, Maya. Why? Because that's what they want. They want one juror to violate the rules, to talk to a family member who heard this rumor and say, oh, did you know? She could have gotten free, but all she has to say is Wendy's guilty. But she wouldn't say because I guess she doesn't know. She wasn't involved, right? She wasn't involved. I mean, if she was involved, gee, I mean, you saw it at the trial. She's saying that maybe Wendy's guilty. So then she must have not have any evidence. I mean, that's why she probably didn't take the deal. So the theme of the defense is gamesmanship, right? This whole false, in a sense, narrative. They're not really accusing Donna of Wendy of being involved. That's just part of the game. It's a gamesmanship, right? And Jackie is really acting as a prosecutor, trying to kind of catch Wendy on a Perry Mason moment, right? Where she would confess on the witness stand or something like that. Because they don't have the evidence to prove it. They're just trying to prove it on the cross-examination. Same strategy that kind of worked in the first trial for Katie McManua. I mean, she got a hung jury out of that, right? So the defense certainly was, I think, unprepared for the disaster that was the ruling from Judge Everett about the adoptive admissions issue. And I think in large part the reason why Donna Adelson didn't testify, because she left so much unexplained that looks bad for her. And the reason why in the end she probably chose not to testify is because she wasn't prepared to testify with this issue in mind. She was prepared with the theme that they had initially, that she was totally innocent, that she was scared, right? This never came up in this trial, this whole issue about she being scared of the gang leader, of Luis Rivera. Now that's gone. Why? Because she didn't take the witness stand. So she abandoned a ton of issues that were preserved sort of at opening statement. Jackie was smart. At least she left a lot of things vague. She would say, for a lot of reasons you will see in the trial, she was scared. Or for a lot of reasons you see a trial, she issued those checks. Left it vague. Maybe not knowing exactly what the state had up its sleeve. Left it vague. But it wasn't vague enough that, they're going to lose face tomorrow. Because the opening statement was about the fact that Charlie and Wendy were involved and not Donna. And yet you have all this evidence of Donna saying, the truth finally came out. This whole extortion BS. So basically adopting total BS. What about this theme of the defense of letting the jury see Donna Adelson in action as she's trying to manipulate the testimony from a jail inmate? What is the strategy of that? Now that Donna is not going to testify to explain it away. Donna is not going to explain away the content of her calendar in 2014 with the information about Dan Markel's vehicle and his tag number. She's not going to be able to explain away why the heck she wrote that note for Drina Bernhardt. She dropped a ton of stuff by not testifying. I think thankfully because she's scared of the amazing skills in cross-examination of Georgia Kaplan, which she saw firsthand. She saw how she was destroying witness after witness today. So I think that heavily influenced her decision not to testify, because she saw that no matter how much she has self-confidence, she knew that she was going to be spinning lie after lie after lie, explanation after explanation after explanation, because that's what's going to have to be, right? An explanation to explain why she needed Dan Markel's phone number, I mean, not phone number, car information. And thanks so much, Maya and Infirmiere. Thank you so much. I do appreciate it very much. So explanation about why she had that information on her calendar, an explanation as to why she wrote that note, an explanation as to so many other things that the state has offered into evidence to put together a very strong theme of the fact that this lady was obsessed and nuts about the loss of the relocation issue, and that she wanted to win the war against Dan Markel, and that of everybody in that Adelson family, the one that had the strongest motive of all of them was Donna. This was all about Donna wanting to be close to her sunshines, wasn't it? So she has the strongest motive, and now she can't explain away anything. She can't say about how she witnessed Dan Markel singing lullabies or telling bedtime stories to his boys on Skype. Can't do that. Can't do that. A lot of things that they left behind and they never backed up, things that they said in the opening statements because of Donna's decision not to testify. And of course, it is her right, as we said the other day when we said, hey, she has to testify now. I think it was actually right after the video that was shown. So I think it was yesterday, right? Yesterday, I was thinking, well, she has to testify now because they show these videos, they show all this stuff that looks so incriminating without you giving it a context. And why the heck did you just show 1 hour of Donna Adelson talking to Drina Bernhardt in a room? Yeah, they were having conversations, and yeah, Drina Bernhardt was writing, and so was Donna. They were obviously engaged in some little conspiracy, and eventually Drina was turned state witness. And she turned state witness because that little conspiracy that she was engaged in with Donna had to do with lying to this jury that's going to be deciding the case. And now, who's going to explain anything? There's no context that's going to be given by the defense. So, we saw the testimony of Marisol Descalzo, and the testimony of Marisol Descalzo was better than the other two lawyers. She actually, I thought, was a good witness for the defense, but she really didn't have much to offer. I don't know if she could have done more. Maybe she could have if the questions were there, but she was there, kept there very shortly, and only talked about the fact that they were planning to go on a vacation. I mean, okay, sure, nothing added really from that. I mean, what was the advice of counsel? Okay, so yeah, if there's no warrant, you can leave the country to wherever you want to go to. Yeah, that's self-evident. So they made the poor lady travel to Miami for that. I mean, she was a good witness. I thought she portrayed herself well in court. So I thought that she was much better than the other two ladies from Tallahassee. I thought that they were two disasters that were destroyed on cross, especially Linda Bailey. So, all right. What else do I want to talk about? There's a lot. Some other shameless things going on in this case. We talked about Tim Jensen, and that disclosure was horrific. Okay, that game. I don't know why he did it. Why he played that game. Why he released this obviously false rumor about an offer from the state, but that was very disgusting. And I truly hope that there's not going to be any rogue jurors talking to somebody and getting this information and infecting cancerous misinformation into the jury deliberation room. I hope that nothing like that's going to happen. And thankfully, it did not happen in the Charles Adelson trial. So I'm hoping that these jurors that are going to be getting the case, they're going to have a lot of power in their hands, okay? And they see what's going on. And this is another theme of the defense. The other theme is to blame everybody, right? Blame the media. The media is just a monster. And, it's actually a pretty smart move because you know what happened throughout the entire trial? The courtroom was filled with so-called media. It was probably half of the people in the courtroom were media people, YouTubers, whatever, with belts around their shoulders, laptops, like this. It was horrible. Okay. I mean, you can hardly hear anything because, like, I'm sitting and I can hear behind me or around me. People have their computers, they have a stream, somebody else's stream, and I guess they're just commenting right there with their big nails. It was just horrible. Okay. So they saw this atmosphere, and it wasn't just media people, but it was a lot of people that were like interested in this case. And I don't blame people for wanting to come and seeing justice for Dan Markel. I'm not saying anything negative because I'm one of them. I was there. I could have been working, and instead I was there watching, and I was there commenting sometimes on my chat. I'm not saying that any of these people are wrong. I'm telling you what the jurors saw. What the jurors saw is all of this commotion going on nonstop. And Jackie, one of the themes of the defense is to use that for themselves, right? First theme of the defense was embrace the evidence. Don't fight the evidence. Be the prosecutor. Jackie's move. Jackie Fulford, former prosecutor, former mentor to Georgia Cappleman. She wanted to be the prosecutor that would show through the evidence that, yeah, this was a horrific murder. They're embracing the horrificness of the murder. They're embracing all of that. How Dan Markel was a wonderful guy, how he was brutally taken away from his kids. Disgusting. I mean, she's trying to get a not guilty verdict. I get it. But that's what they did. That's their team. We're the prosecutors here. We're going to show to you that it shouldn't be Donna here. It should be Wendy. Charlie is already convicted, sent away, but it should be Charlie and Wendy, not Donna. Charlie and Wendy. Isn't there a beautiful picture of Wendy and Katie on the beach a couple of weeks before the murder happened? That's your killer right there. Don't leave. Don't put this nice old grandma who's crying every time she hears any details about the horrible murder of Dan Markel and his horrible injuries. This poor woman has suffered enough, who has suffered a horrible crime committed by prosecutors and the media of, without any evidence, suggesting that she was this awful criminal who engaged in a conspiracy to hire hitmen and murder Dan Markel. I mean, this is outrageous. That's the theme of the in the opening statement. Is it going to be the theme tomorrow after all the evidence that we got? Is that going to be the theme, right? Because that was the theme in the opening statement, that it was outrageous. And that she flew to Vietnam, not just for vacation, but also because of the media, all the attention, all the negative attention that was unfair and unjust, because there's zero evidence to show any involvement. Thank you, people. I'm sorry that I'm not acknowledging. I'm going to try to acknowledge everybody who helps out with our cause, so I appreciate it very much. Right, so that was the theme. That was the theme right there that they had. Embrace the evidence, decry the horrible murder of this beautiful human being, Dan Markel, whom, by the way, they completely trashed today through those divorce lawyers, by showing how he engaged in all this unreasonable litigation. And like I said, half of that is probably true. I mean, he was unwise, but he was provoked. That's my position on it. And to me, because he was like that you cannot call, as a matter of law, you can't call this a non-contentious divorce. It was obviously contentious. Georgia got it out brilliantly in the cross-examination. I did a video about the cross-examination. I strongly encourage you to watch it because that was, I think, Georgia's cross-examination on Linda Bailey is one of the most pleasurable cross-examinations I've seen in my entire career. That was a pleasure to watch. It was that good. Okay, that was an awesome performance by Georgia. I'm already super impressed with Georgia Kappelman, and when I watch Georgia Kappelman in action, this is how I feel. I feel like a total loser, not because I'm not good, not a good lawyer. I feel like a loser because I freaking wish that I had concentrated on making millions of dollars instead of living a more balanced life. I wish I had concentrated on making millions of dollars because I would give half of that to Georgia to come work with me on the channel and on a law firm. I mean, she is freaking awesome as a litigator. And she would be amazing sitting with me doing commentary, and she would be amazing to do trials with together around the state. That's all I would do. I just let's work together. We'll do trials around the state. I wish I could afford it, but I didn't go that route, and now I regret it. So let's see. I have a question. Southern Mom, what was the significance of the stipulation about the defense having? Oh, that's a good question. Miss Bird on their witness list. Thank you for the awesome coverage. You were the best. I'll tell you why. So I think it was because there was a misstatement. I don't recall who was the witness, or maybe it was done during the cross-examination, but somebody made a misstatement. I do not recall if it was one of the two lawyers who cross-examined. I'm going to think it was my friend Eddie Barnes. I think it was either it was the cross-examination of Patricia Bird or the cross-examination of Eddie Barnes, where the defense said, but did you know that I think what happened was like this. Hold on. I think there was direct cross-examination and rebuttal of some witness. It could have been Eddie Barnes. It doesn't matter. I have to go back and find it. But a defense attorney made a misrepresentation that Patricia Bird had been listed on the defense, on the trial list from the defense for the first trial, which would insinuate that back then she was a defense witness. So then they discovered, so the state of Florida called it, went back, found the list, and saw there was no Patricia Bird. So brought it up to the judge, to the opposing counsel. Opposing counsel did the right thing and said, okay, yes, sorry, we screwed up. Another shameless tactic. We screwed up. Maybe they hoped that the prosecutors wouldn't go check. All right. Shameless tactic, in my opinion, or huge mistake. But regardless of whether it was intentional or not, they got caught and they got shamed and they got to do a stipulation. So the stipulation is to correct a improper question from the defense that suggested that Patricia Bird had been on the witness list at the first trial that got canceled because Dan Roshbaum had to remove himself due to Charles Adelson saying that there was no agreement on the conflict of interest issue. Excellent question, Southern Mom. So thank you for the $9.99, and thank you more for the excellent question, because I do remember that when it happened, I thought I need to explain this later to our followers, and I totally forgot about it. It's not even in my notes. So you're awesome, Southern Mom. Thank you so much for your question. Something else that bothers me, and I'll say it, is that in the courtroom throughout the trial, Dan Markel's family is there, and I love them. Obviously, I've interviewed Ruth several times. I talked to Phil, obviously, quite often. We hugged several times. And Shelly is there too. And next to Shelly for several days has been Jana McConnaughhay. Jana McConnaughhay is a local lawyer who represented the estate of Dan Markel. But she also represented the estate of Samara Frasch, who was murdered 3-4 months before. And she was instrumental in allowing the killer, Dr. Adam Frasch, to profit from the murder, to collect a $1 million life insurance benefit at the expense of Samara's kids. Jana McConnaughhay was instrumental in allowing that to happen, and then was instrumental in hiring a ton of lawyers from a huge firm to go after me and seek sanctions after sanctions for every time that I was making an effort to undo that deal. And eventually I had to pay like $36,000. I mean, I'm an awesome attorney. I'm AV rated, top rated attorney. For the first time in my life, I had to pay sanctions only for my involvement in this case to try to help pro bono those two little girls whose mother was murdered, whose family is in Madagascar. So I'm trying to help these people. And those evil lawyers came after me and eventually got all those sanctions imposed against me. So people that have been following me for many years know about the story. And so it infuriates me to see this woman with the victim's family here caring for justice for Dan Markel, while at the same time, she's in proximity to me and she knows that I fight for justice. I want real justice. And what I was doing in that case is pursue real justice and fight against a corrupt system that allowed a doctor to profit from killing his wife from a foreign country, from Madagascar. So what I would like to see is Ruth and Phil telling her to tell her bullies to return all my money. That would be nice. You know, if she really cares for justice and wants to sit there with the Markel family, then maybe, you know, put your money in the cause of justice as well and return all the freaking money that they made me pay for my fight for this family. So sorry, but I had to include that in here because that pisses me off. And all you're gonna get here is pure honest comments. Thanks, Life Goals. I really appreciate it. So what else? What are we gonna see tomorrow? Right? So obviously, I understand Donna Adelson's decision not to testify. She was gonna be crucified on cross-examination. She saw a ton of new evidence against her that she did not expect to see. Her lawyers were totally outplayed and outmaneuvered by the prosecution on this issue of adoptive admissions. So if she was prepared to testify before this trial, she was prepared to testify with a certain theme that the defense was hoping to go with this whole lack of evidence, the whole thing that it was Charlie and Wendy. They were totally surprised, in my opinion, about the admission of all this other evidence. They were surprised about the 2014 calendar having the entry with the information about the car and tag number for Dan Markel, and right above it is Wendy's car with no tag number. They were surprised. And so I understand when Donna's decision not to testify, because she knows that she was going to be crucified. She knows that Georgia Kappelman knows this case better than anyone, and certainly better than her lawyers. And she knows that all she was going to do was explanations after explanations after explanations that nobody was going to believe in light of all the evidence that came in at this trial. So she did the anti-Charles Adelson. So she took an approach. In general, this whole theme has been to go opposite of what Dan Roshbaum recommended for Charles Adelson to do. So in this trial, they're going with a complete opposite strategy, right? To embrace the evidence, to be more like prosecutors, to prove that it was Charles and Wendy, so on and so forth. But that kind of fell flat on his face, and they were not ready. And Donna wasn't ready to say anything. She wanted to buy more time because she wanted to see whether she could come up with explanations to some of the evidence that was surprising. That's my opinion. This is my opinion, okay? Just my opinion. They were trying to buy time today. They were trying to buy time for Donna to think through, to see whether she could possibly delay this enough that she could decide for tomorrow. You know, maybe prepare tonight and see whether she could come up with answers for all the things that she would have to explain. And they ran out of time and they realized that they couldn't. And I think it was a wise decision for Donna not to testify. And so, what is the defense going to hope for here? The defense is going to hope for that rogue juror or jurors. Sometimes you can have more than one that are going to consider what they presented in this case. They presented this crying lady on the. This is not supposed to be evidence, right? Her behavior at the defense table is not evidence that is supposed to be considered by the jury. But you can't unring the bell, right? You see it. So you might think it's pure acting. So if the jurors think that, it's not going to affect them. Maybe some of them are affected. Maybe they think this poor old grandmother, you know, she's suffering. She's suffered enough. Her son is in prison forever. And obviously that has been a huge pain for this entire family. I think that they're going with the pity factor, with the, this has been enough justice. Dan Markel has gotten justice. And, if you're going to go after somebody, go after the young people involved, Wendy and Charles, but not this old woman who simply just wanted to take care of her grandkids and would never have dreamed of killing the man. Okay, this was obviously her evil kids, her rogue kids. And what about that strategy by the way? I mean, she's such a loving grandmother, but at the same time at the trial, well, when her freedom is at stake, she's willing to throw her kids under the bus. I mean, that also hurts your credibility, right? That hurts your credibility. And I think that Georgia would have used that on the cross as well. Would have used that on the cross. Because Wendy, in the end, actually did help Donna. Let's think about it, guys. Wendy was in helping Donna, in spite of the fact that her attorney was pretending to be Perry Mason, trying to, uncover or pull out of "I'm guilty" confession from Donna from Wendy on the witness stand. I keep saying Donna or Wendy interchangeably. I don't know why, but in spite of that, Wendy helped. She was trying to help in her testimony. I think that actually some of the I don't remembers were done on purpose because it makes you look like you're less just trying to give whatever answer the defense wants, right? So even when the defense was asking questions, sometimes she say, I don't remember, to make herself look more credible. But nobody has ever believed Wendy Adelson, anything that comes out of her mouth, except all her best friends who follow her around everywhere, right? They believe her. But any objective listener doesn't believe this lady. Sarah Latore was brought in today, and then they introduced a phone call. What is that about, right? I mean, I have enhanced that phone call. And then, of course, I hope George is going to make this argument. You know why Donna is saying that Wendy's guilty? You know why her lawyer is accusing Wendy of being involved? Because she knows that Wendy was involved. Because why would Wendy call her from an interrogation room thinking, by the way, saying that possibly her parents were involved, and in the presence of Sarah, who now has a different last name, Sarah Latore, who, by the way, does look a little bit like Wendy. She's correct. She does a little bit look like Wendy. So that in the presence of this other lady, and possibly being recorded, I'm assuming that Wendy would know that she's being recorded, calls her mom to tell her the news as she's being recorded, as is being witnessed by another person. Of course, this, to me, looking back and thinking, well, possibly they were involved in this murder. Now, if they were involved in this murder, if this was a very pre-planned, long-planned murder, as it seemed, and all four of them, or at least three of them, were involved, including Wendy, Charles, and Donna, wouldn't that have been discussed, right? At some moment, Wendy would have been told, would have found out about what happened. And at that moment, her first call would have been to her parents. Tell them, come here, help me. Come get me so we can go to Miami, right? And take our things together. Come here and help me. I'm worried. I'm scared, whatever. Mom, you better act surprised because I'm 100% going to make that phone call in front of other people. I mean, I'm surprised that there weren't 20 people at that house to witness it at Donna Adelson's home. If we're consistent with the planning, they would have had friends. But I guess they did, right? They did immediately call their other buddies to say how shocking it was. And then they had their buddies come and testify. So what is the defense strategy? She's a woman who has friends, who never have killed anybody, who cares more for others, who doesn't mind trying to, who wants to flee the country because of the media, and who paid for the hit because she was scared after who knows what Charlie told her, because now she hasn't testified. Who I don't know. It's basically a disaster. So the question is, what the heck is Jackie going to argue tomorrow? Because I think that whatever was pre-planned, because you know how we do it, right? We as lawyers, we work 24/7. Okay, that's the truth. Some people joke about lawyers having, billing hours, but if you have a case that basically gets to your core, to your soul, to your mind, that you're constantly thinking about, you're constantly working on, as Jackie Fulford and Josh Zellman have been doing. That was their primary case, I think, for quite some time. This was going to be their primary showtime of their life, their legacy, right? To be the trial lawyers in this national televised trial. So from the beginning, especially after they review the evidence, after they have talked to their client, after they develop the strategy, you're going to start to think about the closing arguments. You do that from the very beginning. You may have a notebook where you sometimes throw in something that you're going to do in the closing. A brilliant idea comes in the shower. You come out of the shower and you go write it down on that notebook. You build up a notebook full of ideas of different little arguments that you can make in the closing. You got to have themes, and you got to have themes that have been consistently pursued throughout the trial. In opening statement, you introduce those themes to the jury. And then through the evidence, through the cross-examination of the state's witness, and eventually through your own witnesses, you build the pieces for that argument. But I think that in this particular case, these defense attorneys were surprised over and over. I think that they were totally surprised, and that was a little bit of gamesmanship by the prosecutors not to do a motion in limine on this issue. But maybe it wasn't gamesmanship, right? Because I think that everybody reasonably expected that Donna's defense was going to be that Charlie told her that this was an extortion, and she believed him, right? So why would they have filed a motion in limine trying to admit all this evidence that this defense would probably want to admit it anyway because, this was an extortion in their mind, or at least she believed it. She doesn't have to prove that it was actually an extortion, just as she believed her son. So what is the theme? Is the theme tomorrow going to be that the state can't differentiate between whether this was an accessory after the fact situation versus an involvement in the murder? And that's the reasonable doubt? And the statute of limitations has expired, and they haven't charged accessory after the fact. And you can look at every single piece of evidence and think, okay, have they proven beyond any doubt of involvement in the murder? No. Have they proven beyond a reasonable doubt that she was involved after the murder and that she helped afterwards keep Katie silent by making those payments? Yes. So wouldn't that be an accessory? Didn't they prove that she found out about the murder a couple of weeks after it happened, about who did it and why, and didn't turn them in? That would be an accessory, sure. But have they proven that she actually wanted this done? Yeah, okay, sure. There was some hate, whatever, but she also had love for Dan Markel. But again, she didn't testify to give more information about this love. I mean, they got a little bit, I guess, through Wendy, but not much, right? Through some leading questions. Not enough to impress the jury, for sure. There was no stories about Donna Adelson keeping the kids tied in the bed while Dan Markel read or created beautiful bedtime stories. There was a time when I worked in Orlando and my wife and kids lived in Tallahassee. And that back then, this was early in my career. And we had a daughter who's now an adult, and she was a little girl. And gosh, I missed her terribly every night. So every night I would call and I would make up a full story. It was all made up in my head. I wasn't reading any books. I would just make up stories about some distant cousin of Harry Potter who traveled to the United States, who ended up being at the same beach where we were vacationing. And then he met Stella, my daughter, and there were butterflies flying around. They were landing on them. I mean, it was like every day I was coming up with a different story. So, yeah, I can see that happening. But probably, that may have happened before the contentious part of the divorce when they were on a trip. And Dan Markel was probably on a business trip or something like that. And the grandkids were at home with Donna, and Donna would like say, "Here, Dan." Well, they were still married. Here, you can do your bedtime story. I'll keep them here. That's probably where the story came from. So it's partially true, but it was all before the contentious divorce. That's my guess, but we didn't hear any testimony about it. So that's that. We could watch a little bit of the opening statement if you guys want. I think I made all the main points I wanted to make. I'm disgusted by the Tim Jensen move because it goes with the theme of the defense, right? So I really hope that there's not going to be any kind of rogue juror that has heard this BS information that was spread right before the beginning of the trial and that will use that information in any way to infect this jury. I hope not. I discussed the fact how shameful the testimony from the divorce lawyers was, really classless, out of touch, just shameless. That was my opinion. Okay, I have nothing personal against those lawyers, but I was disgusted by it. I discussed the issue that tomorrow is the day where the power of the jury is going to come in, and I didn't discuss it fully. But yes, what we hope is that they're going to decide the case on the evidence. That is what the instructions will be. So my hope is that nobody heard this fake revelation, the fake news that came from Tim Jensen. And my hope is that they're not going to be influenced in any way by the presence of media, by Jackie Fulford's argument that people are making money off this case, and by the behavior of Donna Adelson. I think rightfully they should be influenced, and Jackie should be making an argument about the huge delay in the state bringing the cause of action against Donna Adelson. I think that was unfair to everyone, to the victim's families, but also to Donna Adelson because it hampered her ability to defend herself as well. And I think that you could argue that's they should have done more on that on the cross-examinations, by the way, and I think they did not. They should have done more about that on cross-examination. Or maybe I missed it. I did not watch every single moment of the trial, so maybe that issue was brought in at some moment when I wasn't watching. But certainly that's something that the jury can consider and should consider because it was bad. It was a huge delay. And certain evidence that could have proven or disproven, for example, her presence at Charles Adelson's home on that night, on the July 18, 2014, was lost forever because nobody investigated it, right? So that's bad. So that's something that the defense should explore and will likely exploit. I think I discussed several of the defense tactics. We saw. I thought it was very badly designed, this defense case. On the one hand, I think it was. I mean, what did they get out of bad mouthing Dan Markel, right? To making this about a trial on Dan Markel. I don't know. Can they get a juror to dislike him and think that he was nasty? So does that excuse murder? Of course not. So what is the point? I mean, I don't get it. And her criminal defense lawyer to testify that she was going on vacation to Vietnam. Come on, who's going to believe that? So they're fighting losing battles, and so presenting a defense to fight losing battles, it's a waste of everybody's time and credibility. The other way, by the way, I'm sorry that I'm all over the place, but it's late. The other way that we know that Wendy Adelson has helped her mom, in spite of what people believe, right, is the fact that Wendy must have waived all her attorney-client privilege with respect to her attorney, Christine Adamson, because otherwise she wouldn't have said all the stuff she said. She was discussing in great detail everything about the divorce of Wendy Adelson, and she wouldn't have been able to do so without having a waiver from her client. So clearly, Wendy Adelson is helping her mom. I think that they handled Robert Adelson poorly, just to make him look like a bad son. I thought that was really in poor taste. Like, oh, you didn't come to visit your mom often, or you didn't come to Dan Markel's funeral, or whatever it was that they said. Just poor taste. And I thought that the prosecutors did an amazing job in their case and in the cross-examinations on the defense's case. So there's no guarantee of winning. There's always a nervousness when it comes to a trial by jury, because you don't know what's going to happen. I think we all know what should happen. I mean, I think that the state went beyond meeting its burden of proof in this case. I thought that the testimony of the informants was sufficiently credible to warrant consideration. I think that Judge Everett was more than fair, made several rulings that were hugely favorable to the defense, in particular with respect to this new investigation, which cut the evidence significantly. So she got a fair trial, but nobody can guarantee the result tomorrow. So all I ask you to do is to hope that the jury gets it right. Let's hope that everybody does their job properly. I'm looking forward to seeing the arguments tomorrow. Court starts at 8:45 for the lawyers and 9 a.m. for the jury. There has been delay every morning, but I'm expecting that tomorrow there shouldn't be much delay. There will be a reading of the jury instructions to the jurors before the closing arguments. Then the state will present its initial closing argument. Then I'm assuming Jackie Fulford will present the closing argument for the defense, and then the state will close out its final rebuttal argument, where I'm sure George Kapperman will be kicking ass and destroying it and doing an amazing job. Again, nobody can guarantee a result in any trial. All you can hope for is that it's going to be a fair result, that is going to be based on the evidence that was presented at trial and nothing else. And I hope that that's what's going to happen tomorrow, that the result is going to be based on that. And that's going to be that. Now, I hope that if there is a conviction, that the sentencing will be soon. I'm assuming that there could be a request from everyone involved that it be done immediately, because Donna has all her friends here in town and has even her son in town, so he might be able to say something. And obviously the Markels are here, so they could give their statement in person. But more than likely, it's going to be set at some future date. And then maybe we'll get some jail calls between Wendy and Donna. I don't think so. Although Wendy has helped Donna, as I stated previously, it doesn't look like it has been emotional support through jail calls. So it was completely opposite of what happened with Charles. Charles had a loving mom on his side throughout his battle with the state as he prepared for trial. Donna has been alone, with the only supporting being Harvey, no one else. And indeed, not only did she not have anybody's support, but she got totally screwed by Charlie because her trial was canceled at the last moment thanks to Charlie. So what would have been had we had a trial a year ago? I think it would have been a very different trial. I mean, I don't think so. I know so, because all this new investigation stuff came out after the fact. So 1 year later, here we are, and we have this new evidence that definitely helped the state. Believable or not, that's going to be up for the jury. Thank you so much, Agnes, for becoming a member. So whether it's believed or not, it's up to the jury. But the state had all this new evidence because of the delay caused by Charles Adelson, and because of the things that Donna Adelson did in her desperation. Because obviously she must have been desperate. She's not getting any younger in jail, right? So that's one difference, of course. There was more evidence because of the time. The lawyers were different. I'm sure the strategy was going to be different with Dan Rashbaum and Alex Morris. I think that they were going to go in the direction of saying this was an extortion, but Donna didn't know. She believed her son. So it seems to me that that's the direction that the defense was going to go, but it didn't go this way. And instead, we have these two local lawyers who handled the case. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on their performance. There was some additional thought I wanted to share with you guys, but it totally escapes my mind at this moment. And I'm sure that as soon as I press end stream, that thought will come back to me. But I've been talking nonstop now for, I think, over an hour, and I have said a lot. There was something else I wanted to say. What was it? I'll have to think about it for a minute. Local lawyers. Yes, local lawyers. Hey, hi, old Pueblo. So anyway, I will take your thoughts and questions. MM has a question. Are they representative of Tallahassee lawyers? Well, I'm a representative of a Tallahassee lawyer. So every lawyer is different. Every lawyer should be judged by their own merit. That's all I have to say. Get some rest, ML. Yes, I need some rest. What are your thoughts about the lawyer's performance? That's my question for you guys right now. And my hope is that as you guys are writing, my thought will come back. I had a good point to make and I can't. Oh. What do you think of the PI that said Miss Bird confessed that Katie had said she did it? Oh, that's Eddie Barnes. That's the guy that I play soccer with. Okay, so let me just highlight your comment. Let me go back here a second. So what do you think of the PI that said Miss Bird confessed that Katie had said she did it? So I don't disagree with it. I think it's completely consistent with the state's theory of the case. We know that immediately after the prior trial got canceled, that Donna Adelson started to look for people to testify in her favor. And she put out a word, I guess. That's what it looks like. Oh, I remember. My question to Georgia. Sorry, I got to write this down. So, question to Georgia after verdict. All right. I remember it. Okay. So, Kathy, excellent question. I think that Eddie Barnes, who is a great guy, soccer player, I play with him. His testimony is not inconsistent with the state. It actually kind of supports it in a sense that he went to interview Patricia Bird at a time when Patricia Bird had agreed with Donna that she, Patricia Bird, would testify for Donna and would lie. We already have testimony from the other girl, Drina Bernhardt, saying that Donna would coach her on what to say. And so now we have this PI, Eddie Barnes, interviewing Patricia Bird. Patricia Bird giving a story consistent with that story from the paper that was being written by Drina Bernhardt, but that was written by Donna's handwriting, right? So the script. So Patricia Bird gives a similar story to the defense investigator who doesn't record it, who's not even told by the lawyers to record it. So what does this tell me? Number one is that confirms Donna Adelson was shopping around and offering to pay people to give false testimony. Number two, Patricia Bird at first thought, I'm going to go with that. I want to have some, commissary, some gifts, whatever, some veneers. I'm going to work with Donna and help her out. Number three, she was interviewed and the defense attorneys didn't want to disclose this, so didn't ask her to be recorded. So they're playing some games. And obviously, who would have told the defense attorneys to send an investigator to talk to Patricia Bird? Obviously, it would be Donna. It wasn't like Patricia Bird would have contacted Donna's defense attorneys. It was more like, come on, people. Her client says, hey, go talk to this lady, Patricia Bird. She has good information about Katie. So they do that. They send her. The lady does say whatever, I'm assuming, if we're going to talk consistent with Drina Bernhardt, whatever Donna told her to say. And then later she decides to become a state witness. And then she tells, yeah, Donna was recruiting me to lie. And eventually I decided to help the state and to tell the truth. And the truth is that, no, of course, Katie wasn't involved. So I thought the PI's statement, it actually just corroborates what the state, what happened, corroborates what happened, that Patricia Bird was being recruited and then turned state witness. So what will be my question, if I hopefully remember it after we get a guilty verdict, if we get a guilty verdict? We don't know, of course. We never know with a jury. So my question to her, one of them, is when will we get the details of the new investigation that were sealed by the court? Will you object to a motion from the media to release that information? Was Donna really hiring people to, harm Robert Adelson? What are the awful allegations? Can we see that information? And will you cooperate with the media to make that information available to everyone? That's one question. Another question that I would have for Georgia is, Georgia, we saw the pretty nasty testimony from Kristen Adamson, the attorney for Wendy Adelson, towards through most of the divorce litigation. Do you have any evidence that her withdrawal from the case, which allowed for the delays to happen in the post-divorce litigation and the cancellation of Wendy's deposition and of the hearing where the issues were going to be decided, do you have any evidence to suggest that this was done at the request of Wendy or Donna, or Wendy through Donna, or Donna through Wendy, or anything like that? Since it appears that Wendy Adelson has waived the conflict of interest, have you ever taken Kristen Adamson's deposition, and have you found out why she withdrew? And has she ever withdrawn in any other case where somebody simply made an accusation that she has done something wrong? So that would be another good question. Maybe I should make a community post, to offer you guys an opportunity to come up with awesome questions for Georgia Kappelman. And do you have any awesome questions for me right now? Anything else? Any awesome questions you got to follow up? Hey, Matt's on the house. By the way, guys, I did do a movie about the divorce deposition of Donna Adelson. It was shocking to me that the expert, Linda Bailey, didn't even know that Wendy Adelson was deposed. And Mentor Lawyer knows. She could have just come knock on this door right here and ask me all about this case, because I obviously know it better than Bailey does. Linda Bailey is in the office. She has an office right next to mine. So she was one of the witnesses today for those who are joining late. So we have a duplex office building on this half. If I'm facing the parking lot, the left half is where my office is located. And on the right half is Linda Bailey's office. So I know I've seen her for many years. And I don't know. I don't have anything personal against her. I don't like her, dislike her. But she got totally obliterated in cross examination today by Georgia Kaplan, and rightfully so, because I thought that her testimony was very insensitive and nonsensical, honestly. So very disappointed with my neighbor's thought process and legal skills. That I can assure you. All right. Any other questions? Okay, so here's a comment that doesn't make any sense, so I'm going to clarify it. It says, I don't think the jury will get the trial tomorrow. Donna will testify. Charlie will be called as rebuttal. Jerry will get it next week. Jury will get it next week. I'm sorry, but I guess you're not watching, but the defense rested today. The state rested, said that there was no rebuttal case, and we're doing closing arguments tomorrow morning. So unless there's some disaster and the court will upend everything and say, okay, we can reopen the case, we can reopen the defense case, there might be a possibility. I think it would be very unlikely, but possible. I mean, maybe. I mean, if she wants to put on a show, I don't know. I think maybe Judge Everett will allow it. So maybe. Let's not say that it's impossible, but let's say it's very highly unlikely. Looks like tomorrow morning we're going to have closing arguments. So, okay, but good to see your thought process, people. Thank you, Adriana, for that comment. A vampire in the radio. Can you explain? Thank you so much, by the way. Can you explain the burdens on the new don'ts added? Okay, can you clarify your question, because I'm not sure that I follow. Can you explain on the new don'ts added? If anybody knows what this question means, please let me know, because I'm not following. I think I need new glasses. These ones I can't read very well. Rachel, hi ML, you probably answered this already, but do you think Donna will ask to testify tomorrow? Oh, okay. Is it possible? Yes. I mean, I think that you can ask to reopen a case. So I think it's highly unlikely. I think that the judge could reject it. I think it is extremely unlikely, but it's possible, sure. Why did Donna pick these lawyers? You have to ask Donna that. Shall we all stay tuned? Yes, of course. I think everybody's first question will be, is Wendy next? I mean, so I'm trying to come up with something unique for Georgia. So that's going to be everybody's question. That's no doubt about that. So I'm going to try to have in my mind for the next day or so to think of something interesting to ask Georgia if they win and she gives a press statement right after. I agree. I mean, that was literally the best cross-examination I have seen in many years. I was really impressed with the cross-examination of Linda Bailey. I loved the passion that Georgia Kaplan had in that cross-examination, the righteous indignation. We who study trial practice, and I love to study trial practice to be a good trial lawyer. We have to feel the case and show emotions when it's appropriate and when it's genuine. You got to be genuine in there. And you could see that I think Georgia was genuinely disgusted by this defense strategy and by the testimony of those two defense witnesses. So I think it came off perfect. Had the right amount of righteous indignation in her questions. I loved it. I loved it. I'm going to make a super high quality edit. I'm going to do a super amazing edit for Georgia Kappelman. We're going to make her a superstar. We're going to make the best video ever of that cross examination. I'm going to devote hours to make it the most best video I can possibly come up with. So that's one of my goals for after this trial, is to pay back for Georgia Kappelman's brilliant work and hard work in this case, with an amazing video about her cross-examination of my neighbor, Linda Bailey. Oh my gosh. What a destruction of a lawyer on cross-examination. And I'm not going to do it to shame Linda Bailey. I'm going to do it to prop up Georgia Kappelman, because I just love this woman. She's amazing. She's an awesome trial lawyer. And she teaches trial practice. She works with the moot court teams from the law school. So she's amazing. I totally get I see that I don't know if you guys heard it from a different podcast or whatever, but I understand the overall theme being, hey, let's think outside the box. Can they come up with another shenanigan, another shameless tactic? I mean, there's a reason why on the thumbnail I told Kate, do a thumbnail for my live and include on the thumbnail shameless tactics, because I've seen many, right? We had violations of the sequestration rule. We had two witnesses who were sitting in the courtroom watching other people testify. We had specifically Linda Bailey sitting in the courtroom watching Kristen Adamson testify. They were both buddies from law school. So she gets to watch a defense witness testify in violation of the sequestration rule. And come on, if you're going to do something like that, you want to have a clear ruling and understanding from everybody, right? So how can you get confused about what was or wasn't agreed upon by the state? So it was a waste of time, delays, all caused because of this sequestration violation. So yeah, we've seen a lot of shenanigans. And yeah, there are indications that Donna Adelson wanted more time to make a decision, and she was kind of rushed into making a decision. So I think it is a rightful worry, not even worry, maybe hope, because maybe a lot of people hope that she would get on the witness stand and make this trial more entertaining, I guess, for some people, or more just for some people, because I think we who are familiar with the case know that she would get destroyed in cross-examination by Georgia, and would love to watch that. And think that that's going to be part of justice for Dan Markel, because this cross-examination will be in the nightmares of Donna Adelson for the rest of her life, right? So we would have liked to see that, no doubt. I would have loved to see Georgia Kappelman cross-examining Donna Adelson. I would love it. So for selfish reasons, I would love for that to happen. I would love for her tomorrow morning, for the lawyers tomorrow morning, to show up exactly on time at 8:30, be early, ask for a sidebar conference, ask to reopen the defense case, explain that they thought about it overnight, they had more time to discuss it, and they decided that it was in their best interest of their client to testify. We don't want to have a new trial. Let's reopen the defense case. Of course, the state can reopen the rebuttal, but that's going to look horrendous to the jury. Judge is going to hate it. It's unlikely that it's going to happen. It's unlikely that they're going to make this request. I think the lawyers will try to keep the flow going the ways that it is flowing. But, okay, I don't disagree that that could be a possibility. I don't disagree. Because they also might want to create more issues, right? Because they could request it, so the judge denies it, and then they're going to argue that that's a violation of the constitutional right to testify. So, yeah, is it possible? Of course it is possible that they're going to ask for that, even if they don't mean it. The way Linda kept referring to Kristen by her first name and disparaging them made them look like small town catty nuts, not professionals, right? Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, it was disgusting. I actually walked out during the testimony of Linda Bailey because it was disgusting. I'm sorry, just completely classless and out of touch with reality. What they were saying. So really bad. What do you think of John Laura, and will he continue to represent Wendy if arrested? I no, I've had a couple of dealings with him. He was super nice and cordial and respectful. Um, so have good relationship with him as far as the interpersonal communications about this case. He's super cordial and nice to me. Uh, Reputation is that he's an excellent lawyer. I mean, he even represented Trump recently. So is he going to continue to represent Wendy? We don't know. Of course, that's up to him, but I don't see why not. All right. So I'm just looking for any comments now. I think I made all the points that I wanted to make. I think that there's absolutely no doubt that the closing arguments from the state are going to be sensational. I think that they were able to introduce a lot of awesome evidence. We didn't see all of it. I kind of wish that there was those recorded phone calls too from the new investigation. I don't know if you remember, but I covered all the hearings in this case. So they're all on our channel. And the state had announced that they were planning to use a few phone calls that were recorded conversations. And darn, that didn't come in. So I'm looking forward to having more knowledge about this new investigation eventually and to bring it to you all. My long-term supporter Richard Hybels is here. Watching The Masterful Georgia reminds me how much talent we used to throw away. Ruth Bader Ginsburg could not get a job after law school because she was a female. Yes, there are so many amazing female attorneys that I'm awed by every day, but there are also bad ones. So it is every person, every individual lawyer is judged by their own merits. There are good guys and good girls, good guys and good ladies, not girls, of course, as lawyers. There are good men and good women lawyers, and there are bad guys and bad women lawyers. But yes, Georgia is super awesome, and I'm a super fan. You know, they were testifying about super lawyers, and the only super lawyer that I saw in that courtroom, including me, I would say, is Georgia. She's freaking amazing. She is a super lawyer. And by the way, I was a little surprised. You know, the way that we usually look up other attorneys about their rating, the main place they will look is called Martindale Hubble, and the highest rating you can possibly get there is an AB rating. And so I looked up Linda Bailey, and she's not even rated. I was like, what? That's weird and surprising for somebody who has been practicing for 37 years. So I don't know, weird. Okay, wow. South City is going to be on jury duty tomorrow. Can you tell us a little more? I would like to know what state. Actually, you know, you're not supposed to tell us anything, so don't say anything. I guess after you serve your jury duty, then you can come and do an interview on Mentor Lawyer on Deep Dive to Crime and tell us all about how that went. So don't say anything to anyone now. Good luck with your service. Serve your community. After the fact, you can reach out to me if you want to do an interview and tell me about how that went. We'll gladly have you on to discuss it. Um, so here somebody is trying to think, how long is the jury going to sit out? And this is how it works for the media, for people like me, for people who want to watch also. Okay. So the jury gets the case at the conclusion of the closing arguments. The alternates will be released. The jurors, the 12 jurors, will go back to the deliberation room. They're going to get some food from Judge Everett. They're going to sit around and deliberate for as long as needed. Okay. And so, with this particular judge, Judge Everett, I've covered his trials before. I had a trial with him. My last criminal trial was before Judge Everett. He is a person who allows the jury to stay late past regular hours. They're allowed to stay. In fact, during the jury selection process, there was one day that they stayed late until I think 8 p.m. or 7:30 p.m. or so. So he allows the jury to stay and deliberate as long as they need to. Are they going to use 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hours? We do not know. We never know. My last felony trial that I've done, the jury came back with a not guilty verdict. I was a criminal defense attorney for that trial. Not guilty verdict in about 15 minutes. I literally packed my stuff up, walked out of the courtroom, went to the elevators, walked down to my car in the garage, opened the trunk of the garage, and got a phone call from the clerk saying, "We have a verdict." And I came back up, and we sat there, and it was a not guilty in literally like 15 minutes. Obviously, this is a very highly complex case with a very complicated jury instructions with 3 different charges, elements for each charge. If this jury is going to do their job seriously, as we hope that they will have to go through all of that. They're going to have to answer questions that each other has. They may present questions to the judge. They're going to, if anytime that there's questions for the judge, then the media, everybody reconvenes, the cameras are on, once everybody is seated, the bailiff will bring the question. The judge, well, usually the judge already has the question, then the judge will read the question, we'll discuss it with the lawyers, we'll decide whether he can answer it or not, or what the answer should be, and then they're going to send an answer back to the jury. So it all depends. I mean, obviously in the first trial, it was a lot longer because there were a couple of jurors who had doubts about the guilt of Sigfredo Garcia as far as whether he was a shooter or not. They convicted him on only, I think, 1 or 2 of the charges, not all 3 of them. They couldn't agree on the guilt of Catherine Magbanua, so the first trial took a couple of days. If the more than likely, I think it's going to be a decision tomorrow sometime, but you never know. But they could stay late, and if they stay late, we'll be there late. We'll be there covering until there's a verdict. I'm going to try to do some lives and discuss the opening, the closing. I may try to do a replay while there's jury deliberating. I'm going to try to skip sports tomorrow, perhaps, although I have soccer at 4:30. But I'm going to try to maybe concentrate on setting up a second stream where I do screen share and where I actually replay the closing arguments throughout the day, so that people are waiting and watching the closing arguments again if they want to on the stream and talk on the chat while we're waiting. I'm going to have Kate in the courthouse the whole time, so even if I'm not there, she'll be there to monitor the stream, but the stream is going to keep running throughout the day. It's just going to show the CO until something happens. And it could be several hours. It could be very little. We don't know. Could be days. Why would they offer manslaughter as an option? There's always the parties can request a lesser included. And so if a lesser included a murder includes manslaughter. So that's just an option because it's a crime that, so if you have 3 elements for murder, lesser included would be crimes that has, let's say, 2 of those elements that match and don't have the 3rd. So it gives the jury the option to pick that. And usually a judge, if there's any possible evidence that the jury could find manslaughter, then they'll put it there. Something like, for example, where they accidentally asked the killers to kill Dan Markel. Like, they didn't mean for them to actually do it, They just said, hey, it would be so nice if you did it, but they really didn't mean it. They're just joking, and the guys and the killers didn't understand that it was a joke. So maybe that's a manslaughter, right? Sorry, I'm not laughing about this, but it's kind of like I guess I came up with a funny scenario where it could be the jury finding a manslaughter instead of a murder. July 16, I think, was referred to several times as when Donna's attitude flipped towards Dan. Why? July 16th? Okay, well, Ming Tree, I'm sorry, but I'm a little puzzled by your question, and I'm not even sure if the other one that was asked that I was confused about was clarified or not, and I apologize if it wasn't. But I don't know what you're talking about. July 16 and Donna's attitude towards Dan. Do you think Donna will change her mind and request to be able to testify tomorrow? I think we discussed that already. I think it's possible for sure. Of course, it's possible. I mean, the case hasn't been submitted to the jury yet, so it is possible to do that. I think it's unlikely, but it's possible. Thank you, Adriana, for another nice set of comments. Let me see. There was a question that I couldn't understand. Was there any clarification, Dan? Thank you so much. Thank you. I appreciate that very much. Who had a question that I didn't understand? Hey, Sonia. Thanks for all the details. Oh, okay. So, by the way, I do have today I received in the mail, completely off topic, but I received it the old fashioned way. I received something I ordered, which is the sentencing. This is, I don't know if you guys can see it, sentencing of a guy in Pensacola. Jared Clackley. That's going to be a must-watch video. From what I read, I came into the attention of this case by reading the appellate opinion affirming his conviction for the murder of a fire chief over there in the Pensacola area. A fire chief who was protecting his daughter. This was like a guy who had gone through a breakup with a lady, I guess a contentious breakup, where it ended up in a fight and the murder of his ex's father in front of the entire family. And he acted pretty nuts at the sentencing because he actually did an open plea, hoping that the judge will give him 30, 40 years, whatever, and that he would see freedom again. But the judge brought down the hammer on this guy and gave him a life sentence, and that got him mad. And he started saying crap about the family, and he's happy that he did the murder. So that video is coming to you guys soon. And I have also his interrogation and all that. I haven't published it yet because I've been busy in this case. But anyway, where was that question that I didn't understand? Sorry, I meant new counts added. Oh, I see. The lesser included. So let's go back, Vampire, to your question. Hey, thanks so much, Richard. Appreciate it, man. He's been such a long-term supporter. In redirect, the defense lied and said Patricia Bird was on the witness list on previous defense team. Yeah. That's what I was explaining earlier. That's why there was a stipulation. So that's why they did the stipulation to correct that. Can you explain the burdens on the new counts added? So all I can tell you is that the burden is always the same. So what they added were lesser included. So there are like less serious crimes that are within the more serious crime. So usually the lesser included for first degree murder would be second degree murder and manslaughter. So it just means they will have to read the instructions for each of the crimes. And they usually are the same elements as the more serious crime, less something else. So usually less the intentional, right? The intentional murder. So that's all it is. And I did not listen to the full charge conference. It's called the charge conference is when they discuss the jury instructions. I did listen to some of it, and I did see that they had, that they were going to do, um, include several lesser included. And so, of course, the hope from the defense perspective is that the jury will find her guilty of something lesser to give more leeway to the judge to give a lesser sentence to Donna Adelson. But all the charges come with very severe sentences anyway. So I think that if she's found guilty, even of lesser charges, she's very unlikely to ever see freedom again. So, okay. Are there any other questions? Let's see. And thank you for clarifying that, Vampire. Thank you so much for your nurturing, for your donation. Are there any questions I missed? How about a Q&A with your neighbor? I'll tell you about my conversation with her in the courtroom while she's waiting to testify. So obviously she recognized me. We have seen each other for many, many years. Again, we never talk, but we have seen each other parking, coming in and out. I'm going to tennis, whatever. So I've seen her around for years. I mean, I've been in this office plaza since 2007 when Brian Winchester, the murderer, was my office landlord on the building across the street. And Linda Bailey has been here the whole time. So I've been a neighbor in this plaza since 2007, before the murder happened. We're in 2025. So a long time. So we've seen each other for many years. But really didn't talk at all until last year for something else, right? For a few minutes. So so she saw me in the courtroom and she's like, "Hey, why are you here?" She doesn't know that I'm right next to her on this wall. I actually can hear what they say in this other on the other office often. I hear a lot of contentious conversations over there, a lot of cursing sometimes. I don't know. This would be probably their waiting room, so I don't know why there's so many contentious conversations there from all those simple divorces, but they do happen quite often, and it's very annoying sometimes. But so she's like, "Hey, why are you here?" And I said, "Well, I've been covering this case since 2019." She said, "Oh, okay." I said, "I have a YouTube channel where I cover the case. I've been commenting about it, and I actually know this case inside out. You should have asked me about this case." And she should have, because she was on the witness stand and she didn't even know that Wendy Adelson was deposed. And I made a movie about it, the Hitman Option. So I think I should close by showing a little bit of the Hitman Option to you guys. What do you think? Hitman Option. Let me look it up. Yes, I made a movie. I hired an actress and I made a movie about this case, about the divorce deposition of Wendy Adelson. So, you guys want to watch a few minutes before I go home? All right, let's find it. Hitman Option. Yes. All right, so I see the reenactment. Part 2, but that short's around. So yeah, we have 2 actresses that have played Wendy so far in all these years, and I'm gonna work on doing more creative videos. I have hired a lady from the we have Sully from the FFCU Film School who works with us part-time, so she occasionally helps. She's the one that developed the awesome intro and outro that you guys see with the TV falling into the ocean with the words mentor lawyer inside. So that's Sully, and she's from the film school, so she's amazing. We actually did a few months ago a reenactment of the closing arguments in a child in a case, and we're still editing it, but we got sidetracked by this trial. So in a few weeks, you're gonna have a reenactment. I play the judge, and Maya from our team plays the defense attorney. Yeah, she plays the defense attorney, and a young man from the film school plays the prosecutor. Mel, would you take the job defending Wendy if asked? No, I wouldn't. Not because I criticize criminal defense lawyers, but I'm not practicing criminal defense because I am mentor lawyer, so I can do both. Potter 64, unfortunately, the channel does not make enough money to employ Ladybug. Yeah, it is true. That is unfortunately true. So Ladybug has, so what happened was that she graduated, she moved out. She was working full-time for us while she was here towards the end because we were doing so well. And she started to devote a lot more time to do much more high quality videos, spending a lot more time on each video. And unfortunately, the awesome videos did not turn into awesome views. So for whatever reason, I think it was the birth of STS or different things of that sort, that a lot of these commentary channels came up where they were just talking blab about these cases, whatever, just blah, 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 blah. And so we did amazing productions that would last, like it would take 2 weeks to put it together. For example, the timeline of the murder of Dan Markel, we did an awesome video about it. And she would spend 3 weeks working on this video, and it would get 70,000 views over 1 month, and so make like $600, and she was on salary making like 4 times as much. So I guess if you guys didn't want Ladybug, and so since you guys didn't want Ladybug, she moved on. She was actually working for us remotely after she graduated, and she went back to doing other stuff, and she's getting married soon. So she's still obviously a super awesome friend. I stay in touch. She's been all over the world with her fiancé, soon to be husband, vacations all over the world, living the life and working hard as well. So she's still around, but I'm sure she misses it. I actually invited her to come back for this trial, and unfortunately she couldn't work it out because of her job. So that's that as far as Ladybug. We love her and we miss her and we wish her the best, but you guys fired her. So that's all it is. Okay, guys, I think I got to get going. I want to be up bright and early tomorrow morning, and that's that. Thanks, everybody. Sorry that I put you through my bad acting for a few minutes there. All right. I almost nailed Marlon Brando. I got an offer you can't refuse. Yeah. Okay, people. So we got trial tomorrow morning, and I got to get some rest here. You know what I'm saying? You have a good night now. Now, Wendy, tell us, did you have your latex murdered? Good night, everybody. See you. Mentor lawyer. Good night.